Hello, family, and welcome. We're Bob and Penny Lord, and we want to share with you today two martyrs, Justino Orona and Atilano Cruz. We have eyewitnesses from Jose Sandoval from Coquillo, Mexico, and his brother, his younger brother, Marcos Sandoval from Oxnard, California. These two men were eyewitnesses to the assassination of our two martyrs, Justino Orona and Atilano Cruz. Come with us now as we share with you the life of these martyrs for Christ. We're here at the tomb of Justino Orona and Atilano Cruz in Coquillo, Mexico. With us we have Jose Sandoval, who lived at the time of the two martyrs and was here in this town when they were martyred. We're going to ask Senor Sandoval some questions about that time.
Tell us a little bit, if you will, about what was going on in the region with the government troops coming in. What was happening to the people in the area?
They were all alarmed. All the people left the town because they could not be here. They were all frightened. The priest went all over the ranches, here and there and everywhere, seeking refuge, hiding out from the troops. Some of the townspeople left on their own, some were forced out, like Father Orona's two sisters were exiled from the town. I personally would take the priest's clothes and food or anything else they needed while they were hiding. I was 8 years old at that time. From the priest martyrs, I remember Father Justino Orona, Father Atilano Cruz, and Father Toribio Romo. The three sacrificed from this area at the time of the revolution. Their martyrdom was as a result of orders from the president of that time, President Calles. He ordered all the churches to be closed and all the priests to be killed. Our people all around my town, called Coquillo, because I'm from Coquillo, Jalisco, near Guadalajara, were very upset because there was a strong faith, a faith in Jesus Christ. And because of that, they began to form groups of armed men to defend the Catholic Church. And since their battle cry was "Long live Christ the King and Our Lady of Guadalupe," they were named Cristeros.
So is what we hear you saying, Marcos, is it that when the government turned on the church, then did all the people then
defend the church? Is that what you're saying? Defend not only the church, but defend all the liberties that they were losing?
Yes, that was all of their outrage, because they closed the churches, and the people didn't want that. We did not want our churches closed.
Did you experience any of the men being taken away, of any deaths in your village?
I was able to see some of the men that were killed right outside of the church.
Now remember, it was a firing squad that shot at them, and their aim was never that good. So the bullets ranged from here to here, all the way up to there. And they did make their mark.
The townspeople were with the priests. That's why they took up arms to fight against the government. I personally was able to witness a battle on March 25th, 1928, before the death of the two priests. At around 10 o'clock in the morning, they began to go through the homes asking everyone to leave their homes as the troops were going to burn the town. At that moment, we began to see to the north of the town, in a hill, what seemed like a swarm of black birds. It was many soldiers, lots of them. They enlisted the help of troops from other areas. Their plan was to run the cristeros out of town who had taken possession of the town. The cristeros were greatly outnumbered by the numerous troops. A battle began. My family and I ran off to the hills. As we passed through a hill, the cristeros caught up to us. They were being chased and shot at by the federal troops. Some were already wounded, some had their horses covered with blood. The cristeros shouted at us to get out of the way and find refuge wherever we could. We lay down in a small stream, and the horses passed almost over us. We were just blessed that we were not trampled by the horses and killed. We went to sleep under a tree, using the leaves as a mattress. That night, during the fierce battle between the federales and the cristeros, as my mother carried me, she also carried in her back a towel with dough for tortillas. We stopped at a house in a ranch, and Mother asked permission to come in and cook the dough so we could have some tortillas to eat. We were allowed to remain there the afternoon and the evening. The next day, an acquaintance came to take us to another ranch with his relatives, saying we would be safer there. We stayed there for about 3 days. All we did was pray, pray, and pray. Many rosaries were said asking God for the battle to end. My father and 2 of my brothers went out searching for wood and cactus. As they were on their way back home, they were caught in a crossfire, which forced them to run as far away as they could to save their lives. They hid themselves in a ravine. After 3 days, by God's grace, they were able to come back to the ranch where we were hiding. We stayed there waiting for the battle to finish. And even when it finished, people were not able to return to their homes, as the troops would not allow us. They were all over the hills, making sure that the cristeros will not return to the town. It was a terrible thing. It was a bitter experience. We suffered greatly.
In the 12 years that Father Orona was here, did you get a chance to know him? Did you ever eat with him? Did you serve with him in the church?
I was his servant, his friend. I ate with him and accompanied him to all of the ranches. As soon as he will come into town, they will call me to come and take care of the priest. I was with him all the time. Father received a letter from the bishop giving him the freedom to leave town since the persecution was at its worst. And he showed me the letter and he said, "No, I will not leave my parish. Here I will live or die. My people are worth much more than my life."
Such a great priest. Jose, do you know whoever it was, the informer? Do you know, was it a man, a woman, who informed on the priest?
Yes, I knew the informant. His name was Refugio. He just did it because he was a disgrace. The informant was one of the first ones to get killed. No one knew how or when. They only found his body out in the fields being eaten by the animals.
Jose, did they give Refugio any money to inform on the priests, you know?
Of course, he was paid off to be an informant, but he was paid off by members of the government whom I also knew.
And so, like Judas, he died a violent death. The animals ate his body.
Jose, do you remember the events of the day when both priests, Father Orona and Father Cruz, were killed?
I remember when Father Orona left the ranch, the last time I saw him, on the 28th of June, 1928, we were very saddened by his departure. As Father Orona was leaving the ranch, a friend questioned, referring to the one that was accompanying him, whether or not he was an informant. And Father said, "Oh no, he's just a good friend like all of you." But we were very concerned. Father again reassured us, "I don't believe he's an informant, but if God wills it to grant me the crown of martyrdom, two things I asked of God." Which ones we asked him? Rain, which is much needed in this land, and peace. That the churches be opened again. Both wishes were granted to Father. The same day of his death, there was a great downpour of rain, and in 6 months, churches were opened again.
On June 29th, 1928, Father Orona called for Father Cruz to meet him at the ranch where they would hide out from the government troops, to have a pastoral meeting, to share celebrating a Mass. They really had no idea that they were in danger because they didn't know that the informant was watching them. As a matter of fact, the government, this Gomez, I imagine, was the one who did it, had Refugio go to the place where they were hiding out under a pretext just to be sure that they were there, so that when the troops came, they knew they would find them there. The two priests celebrated Mass. It was really, they prayed the rosary, they took care of all their work. They worked the entire day of the 30th of June, and they went to sleep, the sleep of the innocents, a good, tired sleep from having worked very hard. And of course, their assailants could not confront them in the daylight. As Jesus told us, all of this happens in the dark.
Evil is always done in the dark.
But what happens in the darkness will come out in the light. And so at 1 o'clock in the morning on July the 1st, 1928, these brave troops broke into the house. They banged on the doors. They just banged on the doors. Bullies. And the owners of the house quickly came to open it. And Father Orona, when he heard his door being banged on, opened it and said, "Viva Cristo Rey," at which point they shot him point blank. Our little angel priest, Atilano Cruz, when he heard what was going on, he had such faith in our Lord Jesus, he got up and knelt at the foot of his bed. And that's where the soldiers found him, and that's where they shot him.
Viva Cristo Rey. And this is what we keep hearing. Long live Christ the King. Oh my Lord, what? How must you tremble, Lord, when you see these innocent lambs?
Father Cruz had only been a priest for less than a year. He was 3 weeks short of celebrating his first anniversary as a priest when he was killed.
He was a little boy, really, not much more than a boy, 26 years old. Oh, my sweet Jesus. He was kneeling. He was kneeling. What monsters. I remember growing up, we revered our priests. We revered their hands. No one would ever say a word against our priests, no less hurt them. We thought you automatically went straight to hell if you hit a priest.
I think you do.
I can't understand anyone growing up in this culture where they believe the same, doing this to their priests.
These soldiers took the bodies of the priests, kicked them, put them on donkeys, brought them into the town. Now, what I failed to say is Father Orona's brother was here with them. They were all together, and somewhere along the way into town, they took Father Orona's brother, put a noose around his neck, threw it around a tree, and hung him, and then proceeded into town, here to the front of the church where they dumped the two bodies at the plaza of the church and began mutilating them, beating them, saying terrible things, making the women and children come out to watch it. It's just so satanic, the way that they treated these men.
Then they were placed in exhibition in front of the parish church for all of the townspeople to see. I was able to see them as they laid over the brick wall. I was in the ranch. I did not see them. My parents did. It was a Sunday. Although we did not work on Sundays, I had to remain in the ranch to watch the cows. I didn't know about the martyrdom until the afternoon when my father came to call me, saying I was being summoned by the town mayor to go and present myself to the colonel. My father told me that if I had anything to hide, to flee right away, as the colonel was asking to see me. My mother cried and cried, asking me not to go that same day, as she was extremely concerned for my well-being. So my father went back to the colonel and gave him the message that he had not located me, but that he had left the message for me to go see the colonel first thing the next day. I was being summoned because I had a cow under my care that belonged to Father Orona. The troops have found a letter in Father Orona's clothes which stated that I was taking care of this cow. So the next day I presented myself and the colonel took the cow away from me.
Although you were not here, what did you hear? Was your wife here or any of your children or neighbors who told you about the events of that day?
I was told by a friend that at 2 o'clock in the morning they were killed in Las Cruces ranch. From there they were brought on donkeys. Father Orona's hands and arms fell down to the ground. His hands dragged along the ground and were ripped and bleeding by the time they arrived at the church. Father Orona's brother was also killed at the same time. So they killed in one house Father Orona, his brother, and Father Atilano, and also the men that had accompanied them. The priests were killed in the bedroom, while the companion was taken to another place and hung. They left him there hung on a tree for people to see and learn a lesson. He was killed only for transferring the priest from one place to another.
Something that really has just wounded us so terribly because of our great love for our priests and their anointed hands that bring us Jesus in the Eucharist, that bring us eternal life, it seems that these monsters always went after the priest's hands. Without one of our priests, he was too tall. They put our priests on donkeys, burros, and he was too tall, and so his hands and feet dragged on the ground. What monsters to allow these hands to be desecrated. When they placed the priests in the courtyard outside, they kicked the bodies, just really molested the bodies. But before they did that, they called out the women and children to watch what happens to their beloved priests. And the women and children cried because their priests were truly to them their Jesus. The faithful of the town, risking their lives, laid the bodies out in the town square for about 4 to 5 hours. And they streamed around the bodies. Immediately, they started to take pieces of their clothing, the pieces of their hair. They knew they had saints here, and they wanted this as relics. Oh, they mourned the loss of their priests. How they mourned them. They laid them out, and then they gave them a proper burial. They processed with their beloved priests through the streets. And what they shouted, again, risking their lives, because this, just to say these words, was to automatically be killed in the Mexico of that time. They all shouted as they walked with the caskets, "Viva Cristo Rey and Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe. Long live Christ the King and Our Lady of Guadalupe."
This land was fertilized by the blood of the martyrs. When you look at the shrine, this little shrine that's built in this very small, primitive town in Mexico, was built to these martyrs. You can see thanksgiving for healings, for cures. The miracles began almost immediately. I would like to ask Jose, what has been the reaction of the people of the town since these two men have been beatified? Or were they always considered holy in the eyes of the townspeople?
Devotion to the martyrs has grown since the beatification. There's a lot of enthusiasm. The two priests were always loved very much, but with the beatification, a tremendous love and devotion is awakening. All the people are now praying for the intercession of these two martyrs.
We have a very special gift in having the pastor of the church here and a seminarian. The pastor is Father Arturo Velasquez and seminarian Armando Perez. And they're going to, Armando wants to speak to us, to you, the people of the United States.
On behalf of the parish of Cuquillo and the pastor here present, we want to give you this commemorative cross of the beatification of our Mexican martyrs. It contains on the right side the picture of the pastor, Father Orona, and on the left the picture of Father Atilano Cruz. At the bottom, it contains a relic of the cloth where the bodies were laid. And we want to present them to you, our brothers, whom we know have and are promoting the love and devotion to the martyrs, not only from our country, but from all over the world. And with this, we want to thank you for your work in promoting the lives of these people that have shed their blood for Christ the King.
por Cristo Rey.
As we share on the blood of martyrs and seed of Christians, may this seed not only grow here where it was nourished by the blood of these brothers in Christ so full of faith, that truly gave witness to Christ crucified, but that it may also reach the entire world, because the church is one and all Christians are one. Christ is one. He unifies us all as strong Christians. Today, in which this manifestation of faith is so needed in all the world, where we see in so many continents that faith is decaying, may the martyrs build the courage of the faithful again with their testimony, which is their own life and own blood. Above all, to our lives, the blessings from our parish and all of our church. We thank you so much for your presence, and you are always welcome.
We really appreciate the words of Father, but we must be honest, we need the gifts that we get of the martyrs of Mexico. We look at Armando and we see the future of our world here. We look at Father, who is a young priest, and we see the future, we see vibrancy here. These young people have had this as an example. We must bring this example back to our people in the United States. They need it desperately.
When I turned to Armando, who was 28, and I said to him, you only have to look in his eyes to know it. I said, you will be a holy priest. And he pointed to his pastor. This, he said, is his role model. This is the priest he wants to be. Another priest maker. Why are we bringing these martyrs to you? Is it because when you look at your priest, see these martyrs? When someone spreads gossip about your priest, accuse your priests, try to kill them by destroying their good names, will you not see these martyrs standing there? Will you not see them as martyrs? Their brother priests paid this price. Must our priests today pay the same price? Will you be the one who will hand them over? Will you spread gossip about our beloved priests so that they will be desecrated? They will be martyred? Will we have any faithful when the Lord comes back again? Not unless we have priests here to lead the faithful.
The program you have